it's almost 3:30. Okay, I've got till 5:30. Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. This is once again my now somewhat regular, at least 3 weeks in a row. I'm going to try to do this every Monday as long as I can. Patron/member only live stream where I am working through the data and APIs material. All of that will be published kind of as one playlist without having had public live streams. A little bit of an experiment that I'm doing. It's also funded through the YouTube Learning Incentive Program. So I'm going to do the thing that I do, which is that I take this laptop. How's this charged? 65%. Unplug this. Actually, you know what? It's going to be a while till I'm actually ready. Oh, ha 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 ha. Good thing I remember. So let me start recording to disk. Recording to disk. And then also let me do a screen recording. This is a must now if I'm going to be recording green behind me. New screen recording. Test, test, test. It's recording. Click to record the full screen. Did that. And now I'm going to do a clap for audio syncing purposes. And, oh, I forgot. I was supposed to try to fix something. Mathieu was telling me that the audio is actually pretty out of sync, even just recording to disk. I don't know if I can change that once I've already started outputting. I forget where that setting is, where I put in like an automatic delay. Where does that setting go? Oh. Oh, I can't change a lot of settings, I guess, while I'm streaming. Where is that? All right, Mathieu, sorry. I'll fix that for the next one. We're going to have to like resync the audio later if it's out of sync. Where is that setting, though? It's weird. Oh, I wonder if it's in, oh, maybe it's just in the mic settings, actually? No. Oh, advanced audio properties. Look. Advanced audio properties. That's where it is. No, there's no offset anymore. So, oh, I wonder if the volume doesn't look down to me. What it might be is that on my Monday live streams, I'm a little less enthusiastic and loud. But I'm seeing in the yellow in terms of what it's recording and outputting. So I hesitate to turn it up more. But let me know if anybody else is having an issue or if it's just Nathan. All right. So let's see here. Oh, it's warm in this room today. I wonder why that is. So I'm recording screen capture. I'm recording to disk. Great. I can go. Nope, just the green only, which is all shadowy. Jeez, one of these days. Now I'm going to go to Data plus APIs. Let's look at what I'm going to build today. Let's see what's going on here. So many windows. So here we go. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing. Let me go back to here. Whatever. I don't think any of this matters. In case I've made any updates online, though. Oh, what's in there? Fish. Let's see what the difference is. Oh. Yeah, it should have that in there. So let's add that. Well, let me make sure. Let's look at this. Oh, it's in there. So I'm just going to do git stash. This looks fine. Okay. And, oh, no. Using source. Okay. What is, oh, that's for the exercise, right? Oh, I have to do the exercises for the second one. I'll do that later. And so let's take a look here. So in theory, what I'm going to do today is this. Why is leaflet in there twice? Oh, because one's a style sheet and one's the library. I have to create a couple spans, I guess is what I'm doing, and then load. All right, well, I'll figure this out. Definitely gonna have to figure all this out as I go. Wow. Okay. All right, so let's see if this is working. No. This is changing, that's updating, that's a good sign. That's moving, little by little. Move some more. Why did it stop moving? This is still changing. Is it just like such tiny changes that I don't see it? I know, let's do this. There we go. Okay, that's how I need to demonstrate it. It's so clearly moving now. The position seems off. So does this seem wrong? Like that's not where it actually is? All right, let's see. Oh, you mean it's just off by that? Yes. So I have a feeling, yeah. So like, let's look. So look where it is now. Oh, that's not what I comment out. Where do I comment out the icon? Oh, yeah. Does that seem right? As long as I'm in the ballpark, I don't really care about the corner being the issue. As long as that's the ballpark, I'm good. Oh yeah, you can see that it's definitely a problem. Look, because when I zoom out, the corner of the image, yeah, look at this. I should figure out how to fix that. It is kind of... is there an easy way to fix that? Let's see. Leaflet icon. Oh my God, what is this crazy website I'm on? I can't take this. Ah, size of the icon, shadow size, icon anchor, point of the icon which will correspond to the marker's location. Yeah, so what I would need to add is all of these things. Like, let's just out of curiosity. So just if I did this, yeah. So I skewed the size of it, but at least now it's still in the right place, no matter how big. And obviously I'd want to like resize it maybe as it's getting smaller. I'd want to resize it according to the zoom, but that's so advanced. By the way, this is not using P5, it's not using Mappa. I'm trying to have these tutorials actually be just really, really basic without like a draw loop and animation thing. So I'm letting the libraries take care of this for me. Okay, so this is good. Okay, so now I just need to get myself set up to code this one. Let me fix that. What's the actual size? Let me actually fix this in the example. So desktop here, module 1, iss.png. So tools, adjust size. So the image itself is 50 by 63. Let's make it 50 by 32. So then it's 50 by 32 and it should be 2516. What happened to my browser? Yeah. Okay, that should be good. And, okay, so okay, not running tests or doing pull requests or anything, just making it work. Okay. Oops. No kidding. Working. And so now what I need is I need a folder called fetch JSON. I need close everything out. And close this, and new file, index.html, and, oh no, that's a folder. New file. There we go. What did I put as the title of the other ones? Fetch and graphs CSV. Fetch and grab JSON from the API. Map. Okay. All right. So I think I am just about ready to start working on this. is enabled. And close this. This needs to be open because I'm recording. So this. I don't need this. And here we are. Okay, so now, why is there a search here? Okay, so where am I? The most recent video that I made was the CSV with the temperature data that I graphed with chart.js. So now, what are the things I'm going to use here? I'm going to use this ISS location API. Which I should really keep this open for reference. So that is, where is that? Here it is. Where is the ISS at? Okay. Where's my live server? Oh, here it is. Yeah, looks about right. Okay, I'm doing this right, doing something right. And then I also want to look at this. Okay. All right, so these are all the things that I need to refer to. We're using this API. Okay, leaflet.js is another one. We're using leaflet.js, which uses, by the way, OpenStreetMap. Okay. Okay. And I think I'm ready. So I'm going to move this. Let's see what's going on here. By the way, if you are a YouTube member and you happen to be watching this and you are never received a Slack invitation, please post a message in the YouTube chat and hopefully one of us will catch that. But mostly you've got to find a place where I guess I'll post it in the chat. I want to find that Google form. Well, if somebody needs it, there's a Google form that you can fill out and give me your email so I can send you a Slack invite, and also some stickers. And I've posted a link to that form in several different posts to the community tab, but for members only. Okay, so let me move this. I'm going to unplug this. I'm going to move this over here. Pull this chat back up. Simon, yes, thank you for your information about jQuery. I'm definitely not going to be using jQuery just because I don't want to introduce added complications of an extra thing to teach or for people to look up or document. So I'm going to stick with just the native JavaScript, but jQuery would be an excellent thing to use and to do some videos about at some point. Okay. Okay, I should be back. Yes, document.querySelector. That I would consider using. It's really not the emphasis of what I'm teaching, so I feel like it's not super important. But what I would love to know is that just a more modern, more recent, like what's the advantage of using this other than it's like one nice little function over document.getElementById? Okay. Actually, you know what? I need to. I'm going to take a quick break here for a second. Let me switch to the wallpaper, and I'll be back in just a couple minutes. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. There is a lot more shadowing than usual. Let me see if I can fix that a little bit. As I walk into this pole. I can't see if I do it like this. Hold on. Come over here. Worse. Better. Okay. I've got to get started with some content here. Okay. So yes, the ready method, document query selector, yes. All interesting stuff, thank you. All right, so I'm going to go to here. I'm going to go to here. And then I'm going to make sure my coffee is not in the frame. Bring the computer over a little bit. What's this? It's this side. This is this side. So this should come down a tiny bit. Okay. All right. All right. So this is all right, here we go. I am going to try to talk about what's happening. All right. Welcome to another video in this Data and APIs series. That's as far as I thought. I'll do it again. Welcome to another video in this Data plus API series. Okay. Welcome to another video in this Data and APIs series. What we've done so far is we've learned about the fetch function. The fetch function allows us to fetch stuff. We've gotten images and even a CSV. I'm going to need the whiteboard. Okay. Let me erase this. Quick sort stuff so I can come over here when I need it. This camera is way off of the green. Okay, which way does it need to go? This way? A little more? Better? And what's giving it so much glare? This one? Better? Okay. Here we go. I probably messed up the green screen, but whatever. I know what I'm going to say now. Hello, welcome to another video in the Data and APIs series. So far, I've built two projects. One just uses the JavaScript fetch API to get an image file and redisplay it on a web page. It was a very silly way to display an image because you could just use an image element, but I demonstrated that. Welcome to another video in the Data and APIs series. So far, I've built two projects. One was really not a project at all. It was just a basic demonstration of the web fetch. So close to moving on from the first sentence of this. Hello and welcome to another Data and APIs video. So far I've built two projects. Well, one wasn't really a project, it was just a thing that I did to demonstrate the web fetch API. The fetch API, the fetch function in JavaScript is the sort of building block of all the things that I want to build here. It allows us to fetch resources, images, data files, and as we're going to see in this, this is instead of writing a script. I should probably just write a script. Hello, welcome to another video in the Data and APIs series. So far, I've built two projects. Well, the first one wasn't really a project, if I'm being honest. It was just a quick demonstration of the web fetch API. The fetch function in JavaScript in the browser is the sort of fundamental building block of the examples I'm building right now. The second project was really a project. It used fetch to load a CSV file, tabular data, world average temperatures from 1880 to present, and graph them using a JavaScript library called chart.js. But what you haven't seen, what I haven't done yet, is find some data that's external. It's not a local file, it's not an image on my hard drive or a CSV file. It's something that I'm getting from an external API. What do I even mean by an API? API stands for what does it stand for? Application Programming Interface, right? Yes. API stands for Application Programming Interface. What this means is that I'm an application. I'm a web browser. I'm programming something in JavaScript. You are also an application. You were programmed by somebody. We want to interface with each other. You have decided, the API maker, to say, my application involves data, and I want to make that available to other applications. So rather than say, so in the case where you're looking for data on the web, you might say like, oh, I found this weather website. It has the temperature on it. Maybe I could use some type of scraping technique to somehow extract the temperature. But if I instead found a weather API, it's a service that's saying, hi, we have the weather data. We'd like you to have it. Here are the protocols and things you need to learn in order to be able to access it properly. Let me go back and say that part again. API stands for Application Programming Interface. So what does this mean exactly? All right, let's say that I'm an application. I mean, I am. I'm not, but I'm programming one right now. I'm writing some JavaScript in the web browser. That's my application. You, watching this video, are also an application. You are a server somewhere, and you have lots of data on your server. I'm running way too long on this. Okay, well, let's try this one more time. You're not maybe I'm the API. I don't know who the API is. Good luck, Mathieu, with animating this. We'll get into coding soon enough. API stands for Application Programming Interface. What does that even mean, you might be asking? So an Application Programming Interface is an interface for two applications to talk to each other. For example, I am writing an application right now. I'm programming in JavaScript. My thing before I made as an application, I'm going to make one right now. It's in JavaScript. It runs in the web browser. If somebody else has written an application, maybe running on a server somewhere or some other computer, and maybe that application even has part of it, like a certain amount of data. So what if you want to explicitly state, I want the data from my application to be available to other applications to talk to? One more time. I'm going to get this. I think I know what I'm doing now. Just taking me a few times. These openings really take quite a bit of time. API stands for Application Programming Interface, which sounds very official and important. Well, what does that actually mean? So it means literally what it says. It's a lot of technical jargon, but basically we're writing applications, JavaScript programs running in the web browser. We're programming them, and there might be two of them. I might write one, somebody else might write one, you might write one. If, as part of you creating your application, you want to be able to, no, this is not what I want to say. String, a number, an object, an array, a Boolean value, null. That is very helpful. A function, a class, an instance of a class, undefined. I've gone too far down this road. First of all, I've explained what APIs are before in other videos. Here we go. What does API even stand for? So, no, that sounds weird. API stands for Application Programming Interface. Yes, it sounds very important, but it's really a little technical jargon for something quite simple. It is the term refers to two applications talking to each other, two computer programs sending information back and forth. So if I'm the designer of an application and I want other people who are programming stuff to be able to talk to my application, I will create an interface, a set of conventions, a protocol by which other applications could talk to my application. And what I might want to do with my application is serve up data. For example, maybe I'm a newspaper and I want to let other applications have access to all the news articles over time. Or I am an image database and I want to let other applications have access to images in my database. So, that's good. That actually was good. There are a lot of steps to getting, okay. There are a lot of pieces to this puzzle. There are so many different ways that there are a lot of pieces to this puzzle. There are all sorts of different kinds of requirements for communicating with an API, and related to authentication and how you're making the request and what kind of things are required with the request. But we're going to start in a really simple place. We're going to go back to that fetch function and say, hey, the fetch function is a simple way for making a request from an API. You can say, please, one more time, here, okay. There are a lot of pieces to this puzzle. There are so many different kinds of requirements and There are a lot of pieces to this puzzle. There are many different There are a lot of pieces to this puzzle for communicating with an API. You might have to authenticate with some kind of security stuff. You might have a limited number of requests you can make from the API. You might have to provide a certain amount of parameters to your request so that you get the right data back. But for the purpose of this, I've designed this project to start in a really simple place. Remember that fetch function, our building block? All we need is the URL address of the API. We put that in the fetch function, we call the fetch function, and back comes the data. The API that I'm going to use to demonstrate this is at a website called, wheretheiss.at. It's an API that gives you back the current location in latitude and longitude of the International Space Station. It actually gives you lots of other stuff with it. Including the altitude, the velocity, what the visibility is, what time. It actually gives you lots of other information along with the latitude and longitude, the altitude, the velocity, what's the visibility, what time is it, some information about the sun and where it is, all sorts of stuff. But I'm going to use just one thing. One more time. I try to say we. I think we sounds weird. It's I. That's what I mean. It actually gives you a lot of other information too. The altitude. It actually gives you a lot of other information besides just the latitude and longitude. It gives you the altitude, the velocity, the visibility, what time it is, where the sun is, all sorts of stuff. But all sorts of stuff. But the idea for this example is if I can figure out how to make that request, how to pull out the bits of data that I want, the latitude and longitude, then what I can do is what am I saying here? Where am I going with this? I've got to come back to leaflet at some point. But I want to do just the simplest thing. But I want to do just one thing. I just want to get the latitude and longitude of where it is, and I want to plot that on a map. So in addition to But I want to do just one thing. I just want the latitude and longitude. I just want to be able to display that latitude and longitude on the web page, as well as plot that point on a map. To do that, I'm going to use the JavaScript library leaflet.js. There are a variety of different JavaScript mapping libraries. There's Google Maps, Mapbox, Leaflet is a nice one. It's open source. It uses OpenStreetMaps. Are those public domain images? OpenStreetMap license. Oh, Creative Commons. All right. I heard something talking to me. I want to do just one thing. I just want to get the latitude and longitude, display it on the web page. Then I also want to plot that point on a map. So to do that, I'm also going to use the leaflet.js library. It's an open source mapping library where all of the map images are Creative Commons licensed. But you could also look into using other mapping libraries like Google Maps or Mapbox and try experimenting with one of those as well. I liked Amar's comment. I can't believe that you had an easier time explaining the Fourier series. I did not have an easier time. But before we can do any of this, we have got to become comfortable with something called JSON. JSO. Actually, maybe I will. Whoops. Have I not been in front? I've been in front of the green screen the whole time, right? You haven't been seeing the web stuff behind me, have you? I hope not. Whatever. Otherwise, I got to do this again, which wouldn't be so bad because I could probably do it all at once now that I figured out what I'm saying. Pretty sure it's just been the green there. But before we could do any of this, we have got to become, you and me. But before we can do any of this, you and me, we have got to make sure that we feel happy and comfortable with the idea of JSON data. What is JSON data? JSON. JSON. Is there another way to say it? JSON, yeah. But before we can do any of this, you and me, we have got to become comfortable with the idea of data in JSON format. JSON, JSON, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. The good news here is if you're here already, you're probably familiar with JavaScript. It's kind of a requirement of being... One more time here. Phone is in my pocket in a weird way. Let me make sure I don't have any important messages. Oh, I see. When I come back over here, I'm so used to switching... Yeah. I'm so used to switching to 1. That's why I got confused. Okay. But before we can do any of this, before we can dig into this project, you and me, we've got to have a talk. We've got to talk about JSON, JSON, or JavaScript Object Notation. The good news, if you're here already, you're probably familiar somewhat with JavaScript. After all, it's kind of a requirement to be in this video series already. It's fine if you're a beginner, and I have other resources for people who are just learning JavaScript to kind of get up to speed. But right here, right now, you should be familiar with the basic idea of JavaScript. And you've hopefully then maybe written some code like this. Like maybe you wrote some code once that said, let POS for like position equal open curly bracket, close curly bracket, latitude, 100.0, longitude, negative 7.6, and with a comma there, and maybe even a semicolon here. Here is some JavaScript which declares an object. This is called a JavaScript object literal. You have an object position with a latitude property and a longitude property. Are these actual latitude, like real latitude, longitude values? Let's see. Latitude, latitude, 100, longitude, negative 0. What did I say? Negative 7.6. Just want to make sure that's like a legitimate value. Oh, I have to do this. No, oh my God, give me a break. No, I don't want to find my latitude and longitude. I guess I could just put it in here. What did I say it was? 100, negative 7.6. Where is this going to be in the world? Oh no, but it's already quickly getting the API. I'm really lost my mind here. Let's not get data. Don't get data. Is it nowhere on the earth? Did I make up a fake did I make up a fake latitude and longitude? No, I have to do this. Oh no, I don't want this. I see. Can I do this? No. No, I added it to the map. Oh. Caching? I just want to see where that is. No one will help me out. There's nobody watching. Oh, I'm losing my mind here. What? Set view, marker. Yeah, no. 100, negative 7.6. Let's get rid of this icon. How is it possibly getting... Oh, update is there. No wonder. Is that not a legitimate place? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because this still... I think I meant to say... That's what I meant to say. Where was that? Somewhere over here near Singapore, Jakarta. I'm going to have to redo this whole discussion. Whoops. Because I can't make up some fake values. What's an interesting latitude and longitude? Wait, this is latitude, right? I don't have these backwards the whole time. Yeah. No, I'm doing it right. Set lat long. Lat always comes first. Let's see if this is an interesting location. Ooh. Guess we... Look at this. Never been there. Max value is 90. Yeah, right. Latitude is first. Max value is... No, I don't know where it should go. I'm trying to pick up something, maybe a little Easter egg here. But I don't know what would be a good Easter egg. I don't think it matters. I've got to move on from this. Let's come back over here. Let me do this part again with some real values. Or I could just say... I don't want to use New York City. That's too Too American-centric. I'll pick something random. I just know I have to be between negative 90 and 90, and between negative 180 and 180 for longitude, right? Let me do that whole part again, even though I kind of liked what I said, but I forgot where I left off. Actually, I don't even remember where it was. I'll just go from here. Matthew is a magician with the editing. You've probably written some code like this. Let pause, like I'm going to create a variable like pause for position. It's going to have open curly bracket, close curly bracket, maybe a semicolon. And then I'm going to put two properties inside of this JavaScript object literal, like lat for latitude, colon, and LON for longitude, colon. Latitude is between negative 90 and 90, so let's like pick negative 45, comma, longitude is some other number. Let's pick 112, I'm just picking this randomly. And here I have a JavaScript object literal. Let's go actually write this in code. So I need to be in here. I have an empty HTML file that I'm starting with nothing in it. I'm just going to say let pause equal, and I will say, ooh, Amr, that seems like an interesting place, 3136. 3259, Bourges, France. I like all these locations. Whatever, we're going to find out what I picked randomly. I have a blank HTML file here, and I'm just going to, with a little script tag in the body, and I'm going to just write I'm going to put this exact code in here, let pause equals latitude, I mean, what did I pick? Negative 45, longitude, 112. And then let's just say console.log pause. And if I go to the browser, which I don't have open, is this it? Oh, shoot. Oh, this is it. And if I go to the browser, there we go. Here is our JavaScript object. Look, it's like a thing with data in it. What am I even talking about? And if I go to the browser, I can see, there it is. I console logged it. Here's my JavaScript object. It's an object with data in it, with properties like lat and long. Guess what? This is a very long explanation for something quite simple, which is that JavaScript object notation is data that comes in the format and syntax of JavaScript object notation. There is a slight difference, which is when data is in JSON format, it is more like a text file. It's not actually just, there's a difference when, what am I even saying? What am I doing? Where was I? I'll say this again. Latitude, long, latitude, longitude. It's actually quite simple. That's what JSON is. JSON. It's data that comes in JavaScript object. I totally lost what I was saying. I have to go all the way back because I lost my train of thought. Choo-choo, ha-ha. So I have to come back to here. Oops. So when I go to the browser, I see there it is. There's my JavaScript object with two properties, lat and long. And by the way, that's exactly what JavaScript object notation is, what JSON is. JavaScript, JSON is data that comes in the form of JavaScript object notation. Now, a JSON file is a file like file.json that has, this is harder, this is like so simple, I'm like overthinking this, but got to get into the coding. Was it 415? Once I get into like the real coding of the project, things will just move much more quickly. This marker is also terrible, which is not doing me any favors here. Do I have a new one? I need a fresh one. Give me a fresh marker. No. So many markers. All dying, slow, sad. Ooh, this one looks very fresh. Good, okay. This is going to be good. I have a fresh marker. It's going to be good now. So if I go over to the browser, I can see here, there it is. There's my JavaScript object with two properties, latitude and longitude. So this, in essence, I'm spending way too much time trying to explain something quite simple, which is that data that's in JSON format is exactly this. It's data written into a file with this syntax, the same exact syntax as JavaScript object literals. There are some key differences. For example, if you're going to find, if it was a local file that had JSON in it, it might have a name like file.json, and the property names, There are a few important differences. For example, if the data was not written into hard-coded into code itself, you might find it in something like a file, a raw text file with a name like file.json. And in that file, you would see exactly this, an open curly bracket, a closed curly bracket, but the property names would have to be in quotes. So latitude would have quotes around it, longitude would have quotes around it. These numbers could be without quotes, they would look like this. And so this could actually be the contents of a JSON file itself. Sorry, okay. I'm going to take my watch off because I'm getting text messages. It's distracting me. Now, what's in this file can be much more sophisticated than just two numbers, which are named. Now, what's in this file can be much more sophisticated than just two named properties, two numbers with the keys lat and long. There could be a property that is actually an array of a list of things. There could be a property that's another object with several other properties which has an array in it. This can be a nested tree structure of data. So I don't want to go too far down that road right now. I want to look at a very simple example where the API gives us back JSON data in this format. I don't want to go too far down that road right now. We'll get there. There's no way to avoid it. But right now, this API that I've chosen, the International Space, Ooh, what just happened there? Did this freeze? Or it's just showing you something crazy? Hold on, no, that's fine. Whoa, the camera is all messed up. Hold on. Glad I noticed that. Bad cable. I think we're good now. Okay. Now, I don't want to go too far down that road. We'll get there eventually, for sure. I just want to I want to do something. Now, I don't want to go too far down that road. We'll get there eventually. I just want to do the very basics here. I want to reach out to an external API, ask for some data. That data will come in JSON format. I want to extract the values of certain properties and do something with them. And the where ISS, where is the ISS? What is it called? Where the ISS at? The where the ISS at API is a really nice place for us to start. Okay. So this is made by, where does it say who made this? Because the person who made it, let me just see, data. There was discussion about this. ISS. Yes. Bill Shupp. Pretty sure, yeah. This is the correct person. Hopefully I got this right. Okay. This over a tiny bit. Should be good. Let me just check these messages. Okay. Okay. Sorry, everybody. This is annoying, but like, there's other things that on Mondays I have all these other things I have to deal with. Let me just see. So I shouldn't lose my momentum here. I should look at this later. But I'm going to just really briefly check something important. Okay, let me just check this real quick. I don't see that email. I'm not going to worry about it. All right, I'm going to keep going. I got to keep going. Okay. All right. So here we are at the website, Where the ISS at? Now I should say this is maintained by Bill Shupp. Thank you so much for building this website and API so that I can use it in this tutorial. This is not an official, what do I say? Official International Space Station API, whatever that would be. Okay. Let me cycle this camera. It's got to go off soon. So here I am at the Where the ISS.at website is. Hopefully this website still exists whenever you're watching this video. This is not an official International Space Station API, whatever that might be. This is created and maintained by Bill Shupp, and thank you so much for the work in building out this website and API. And I want to build essentially what is the same as what's on the homepage of this website. Something that shows a map and shows where the International Space Station is. I'm going to make a much simpler version of what's here, but you can get some ideas of how you might make yours a little fancier with some additional features. So the first thing you always want to do if you're working with an API is try to find the documentation for that API itself. And on this website, I can find it by looking right down here and finding this link API. I am going to click that. And now here I am, I'm at the Where the ISS at REST API documentation. Now I'm going to get more specifically in future videos as to what this term REST means, because ultimately you're going to make your own API. Okay. So in a future video, I'll get into more specifically what this REST term is and what I mean. In a future video, I'll get into what the REST term is, what that really. I'm in the wrong Slack channel here.
So I did what I really shouldn't do and start looking at other things. Live, there we go. Okay.
In a future video, I'm going to talk specifically about what the term REST means.
What does it mean? REST API.
Right. In a future video, I'll talk about what the term REST means, but in a future video, I'll talk about what that term REST means, and actually, I have an example that I hope that we're going to make. I feel I got to get through this one sentence. In a future video, I'll talk about what that REST API means, and in fact, I have a project that's going to come in this playlist where we'll build our own REST API. In short, you can think of REST as a particular convention and style for how an API is designed and it works. But there's really important concepts here. We can see, aha, what is the authentication required? A really good sign for us as we're just starting out in our journey of learning to work with APIs is there is no authentication required. So authentication required can involve some steps like signing up for an API key, which is like your secret code for using the API, and then you have to put that in your code, and then sometimes you have to hide it in your code, and we're going to get into all of that, but I'm so glad to use this API that doesn't have any of that just for starting. Rate limiting is a concern, right? For us right now, we don't have to worry about it. The limits here are 1 per second, so I'm going to remember that fact when a little bit later in this video I start trying to put in a timing information as to how often I want to request the updated location of the space station, and then some other information on responses, and then here, this is also really crucial, endpoints. What are endpoints? Endpoints are, what's a nice way of describing endpoints? Endpoints are the path, the URL path. Endpoints describe the path, the URL path that you can request a certain bit of data from. And certain APIs will have different endpoints. Oh, if you want the latitude and longitude of this satellite, go to this endpoint. If you want the latitude and longitude of this other satellite, go to this other endpoint. And that's what we're seeing here. What are the example URLs? And this one right here looks like api.wheretheISS.at/v1. This is very common. APIs will often include in their path, in their endpoint, reference to a version number because it might change. They might change how it works later, and so they would then update the API to be v2, but you could still maybe use, if they're making it available, the old v1 links. But rather than explain this too much more, I can actually just copy this URL and go right here, paste it into the browser, and we can see, oh, look, this is a list of all the available satellites. Well, this is a very simple API. It just makes one thing available, the International Space Station, and that's its ID number. Why do I care about that? Well, the ID number also signifies another endpoint where I can get more information about this specific satellite. And if I kept going down this page, I would look down and see like, oh, right here. For example, if I know the ID of a given satellite, I can then go to /satellites/that ID number. I do that. I paste that URL in instead, and voila, I have all of the data from the API. And notice that if I refresh, the latitude and longitude is updating. It's changing. Very small increments because, in terms of latitude and longitude measurements, the space station is orbiting the Earth very slowly. But those numbers are updated every time I refresh the API. You might also notice this raw parsed button up here. You might not see this in your browser if you're following this along exactly. Yours might look just like this. So this is typically what raw JSON data looks like. It doesn't have line breaks and spaces and tabs in it. Why should it? It's for computers to send data back and forth. But I have a Chrome extension, a browser extension for the Chrome browser that parses and gives syntax highlighting and line breaks and lets it be foldable and all sorts of things. So there's an ample number of these. If you search, browser extension JSON formatter, you'll find a bunch. But I will include a link in this video's description to the one that I'm using right now. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, there's not much more for us to do for this very first step.
I just need to remember this endpoint, this URL path to the API itself. I'm going to go into my code. I don't need this thing anymore, and I'm going to use the fetch function. So I want to just start by writing an async function called getData. That way I can just use the await keywords right from the outset. And I always forget to say function. And let's call this getISS. And then I'm going to say const response equals await fetch. And then what do I want to fetch? That particular URL. But I don't love this. I think it would make much more sense for me to just store in a kind of global variable the URL to the API. And maybe I might even want to call that API URL or ISS API URL or something like that. And then I can just put it in here in the fetch function itself. So if you recall, when you get data back from the fetch function, it comes as a stream and you have to package it up in the format that you want. We've done it with images as a blob. We've done it with text, CSV data as text. And now it is time for us to say data equals await response.json. We want to convert that response into JSON. I'm going to say console.log data, and then I'm just going to say, I'm going to call the function getData when the page loads, and let's see if we see the data from the API in the console. And let's see if we see the data from the API in the console. No, getData is not defined because I got to define the function before I call it. So we're going to put that up here in the way that I'm writing my JavaScript right now. All right, now, and probably this has to be up top too. So now I'm defining the, what just happened there? And this needs to be up at the top also. So now I am defining the API URL, the getISS function. Of course, it's also called getISS. It would be nice to call, oh no, I don't have to define, crap, it's hoisted. Let me go back. GetData is not defined. Oh, that's because I called it getISS. It would be nice to call the function with the name that I called it. API URL is not defined. Oh, because that is defined first. Oh, it's very, I've actually written this in kind of a terrible way. Let me just be quite consistent and let me put the function at the top, and let me define the API URL top, and then down here I'm going to call getISS. Order of operations is a thing in programming. There we go. Look, and now I have that data logged into the console. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you for that bit of information, Nathan. Great. So let's say I want to pull out specifically just the latitude or just the longitude. The good news is I can just get those from the JavaScript object. The data, this is why it's so convenient to work with JSON data in JavaScript. Comes in JavaScript object notation, and then you've got it as a JavaScript object. So I could just say data.latitude, data.longitude. If I want to just log just those bits of data, and we can see there they are right there. And then I can also use a fancy thing called JavaScript object destructuring, which I think, wait, how do I do that? Let's look over here. Yeah, this. I can also, is that called destructuring? Let's see. Yes. Then I can also do this fancy thing called JavaScript destructuring, which basically takes the pieces out of a JavaScript object or an array and puts them into separate variables. So I can just do this. If I say const latitude in an object, latitude comma longitude equals data, then that will give me the latitude and the longitude in separate variables. There they are again. So what do I want to do? Maybe what I want to do is actually on the web page itself is I want to create a header saying, international, where is the ISS? Then I'll make that a header tag. Then I'll make a paragraph tag, and I'll say the latitude, or let me just say latitude span ID equals lat, and then I will add a line break, and then I will say, do the exact same thing, but with longitude, and I'll say span ID equals long, and then what I'll do is I will say document.getElement by ID lat.text content, is that what I say? Text content equals latitude, and I'll do the same exact thing with the longitude. And if I go back now, there we go. Look at that. You can see, whoops. And if I go to the web page, whoops. And if I go to the web page, we will now see, there it is, the latitude and longitude, and every time I refresh this page, I'm getting the new values. I have now successfully used the fetch function to retrieve data from an API, from a particular endpoint of an API. There's the endpoint. I take that stuff that I get back, I convert it into JSON, I destructure the data out into two separate variables, latitude and longitude, and then I take that data and redisplay it into an element on the web page itself. Woohoo! All right, this is actually kind of almost done, but there are two really big things that I want to do to this. Number one is I want to be able to take the latitude and longitude and plot it onto a map. So in the next video, I'm going to do just that with leaflet.js, the JavaScript mapping library. I also want to think about, but before I get there, there's another thing that I want to do, which I'll come back and do at the end, but you might want to even try it as an exercise right now. How could I have, after a certain amount of time, the web page take it upon itself to go and request updated data and update those span elements on the web page itself? One way to do that is with using a function called setInterval. And I'll come back and add this to this program, but that's something you could try now as an exercise. And something else you might try is just, well, what if you want to also add velocity to this? Or maybe go and find a different API with an endpoint that you can retrieve some data from and redisplay it on the web page. Just watch out for all of the authentication stuff. If the API you find requires authentication, you might have to do some funny business with an API key or some type of login before you can access that data. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next part where we'll get that map happening here on the web page. Inner text. Once Alka told me which one I should use, and I can't remember what he said, but he said not to use inner HTML. That's what I'd always been using, which is there. So I'm going to stick with this. All right. Woohoo! All right, I got to just deal with a couple messages before I do the next part. I have an hour, so I think I'm going to be able to finish it. So I'm looking at this computer that's like way over here. Okay. So I have to send a couple messages before I move on to the next part. So I'm just going to have this computer up here. Sorry, everybody. I'm sending an important message. I'll be done in just a few minutes. Okay. Okay. I'm going to keep going now. to, let me look over what I need. Is it? Let's see, how did I do this on the original? So all I need to do is add a div, then create the map, set the view, set an give an attribution, and then do this, add the tiles to the map, add the marker. Okay, great. Okay. And where is my coding train? There we are. Okay. Oh, there's Alka telling me to use text content. Perfect. That's what I used. Great. Okay. I'll do this in front of the green screen just in case Mathieu wants to add anything before I start adding more code. I'm back to keep working on this International Space Station map plotting project thing. What did I actually say in my outline I was going to do? I think I said this project would have add map and then, 3 videos. Perfect. All right. I'm back and ready to continue this International Space Station mapping project. We've got the data from the wheretheISS.at API. I'm able to also retrieve the latitude and longitude and update 2 STOM span elements on the web page with that data. Now, I want to plot the point of the latitude and longitude on a map. And to do that, I'm going to use leaflet.js. How do I use leaflet.js? Where's the CDN? Quick Start Guide. Quick Start? Okay. Here's the leaflet.js website, and I'm going to go to, I always like when there's a quick start guide. Let's go to the quick start guide, and this is the first thing we need. So one thing that's interesting about Leaflet is we need to add to our HTML file a reference to the library. We've seen this, I did this with chart.js, but Leaflet also includes a CSS file, cascading style sheet file. This is a file that has lots of styling information for the map itself. So I need both this CSS file. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to put it into my code in the header. I don't know. We'll put it here. Maybe there's a place it's supposed to go. Hit save. I also need this JavaScript reference, but this needs to go after Leaflet's CSS. That's very important. And then, so that goes here. Now the other thing that I need, which is right here on the page itself, is I need a div. I need to create a DOM element where the map is going to be placed. So I can do this without copy pasting because I know how to make a div. I'll put this below. I'll say div ID equals, and I'll call it ISS map, end div. And if the quote is in the wrong place, I said I could do this without copy pasting. There it is. So now I have my div, but there's another important piece here, which is that I need to make sure that the div has a defined height. If it doesn't have a defined height, the map won't appear because it will assume the height is 0. So this is actually some CSS. This is not I can't cover everything in this video series as much as I might like to. If you're unfamiliar with CSS, I will point you to some resources in this video's description of where you can learn more about CSS. But this CSS is a way to define styling information, particular elements. So this is styles for the map ID, which I'm calling ISS map. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to add in the header a style tag. So I can put some inline, some CSS here, and then I'm going to say map ID height, but I'm actually going to call this ISS map, and there we go. So now I have both loaded the leaflet.js library, I have defined a div element where the map will go, and I have given it a little bit of styling information so that I know what the height is. Let's go back to the web page. I don't see anything there yet. Why not? I need to specifically, with JavaScript, create the map itself. And I have a feeling if I go back to the quick start guide, which is right here, it's going to say, now you're ready to initialize the map and do some stuff with it. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a map object. I'm going to copy this bit of code, and I'm going to place it right here let's do this right at the beginning. I'll do this first. And I'm going to change this to const, and this is going to be ISS map. And let's leave the view stuff in here, but let me just explain to you what these things are. This is the latitude, this is the longitude, and this is the zoom level. And those are the settings for what the map should show when it first loads. Let's see if this works. I'm feeling we're running into an error. No. Huh. Oh, no, that's pretty good. Look, there's our map. Wait, but I don't see any map. We forgot the next step. The next step is I need to tell it where's it going to get the stuff to actually draw the map. And that's called tiles. So let me go back and do this part again. There it is, sort of, kind of, not really. There's a square there. There's a zoom in, zoom out. Even says leaflet at the bottom, but I don't see any map. This is because I haven't specified the tiles. The tiles are the images of the map itself. And the reason why they're called tiles is the leaflet, and most mapping libraries work the same way. They're very sophisticated, and they can take any part of the map that you want to show and load a bunch of tiles, simultaneously tile them together and show you that map as you're zooming in and out and moving around. But I need to specify the tiles. So I'm lucky that I'm just with this nice quick start guide. Wait a second. No. Do I need an access token? Did I sign up for one before? Let's look. Yeah, I can make this very, very simple. I'm going to do it this way. Because it's from Mapbox. If I look back on the Getting Started guide, we can see like, oh, it's creating this tile layer from this api.tiles.mapbox.com. So I'm going to actually use tiles from OpenStreetMap, which is a Creative Commons repository of mapping tiles. And I am required, if I use OpenStreetMap, to use this attribution. So I'm just going to grab it and put it in my code. Let's do this. This is what I had, I guess. All right, So I looked up what the attribution is required, and it's this. The copyright symbol, a link to OpenStreetMap, and then saying that the tiles are from OpenStreetMap contributors. So once I have that, I can create a variable called tiles, and then, hold on, sorry, let me just grab this, l.tile. I'm going to put this in my, once I have the attribution, I can create a variable called tiles. I say L for leaflet. By the way, I didn't even explain that here, but capital L is available to me because I've loaded the leaflet library, and all of the functions that I might want to call associated with the leaflet library, I call by saying L dot. And in this case, I want to say L dot tile layer, and then I need to give this a couple different things. So I'm going to give this 2 objects. Right? No, not 2 objects. I'm going to give this 2 things. One is the URL for the tiles themselves, and that happens to be this. I happen to have it just right there. Sorry. I'm going to give tile layer 2 things. It needs 2 things. One is the URL of the tiles themselves, and that is a thing that looks like this. I'm going to say tile URL equals this. It's a little bit strange. I'll come back to that in a second. So I need to give it tile URL, and then I also need to give it the attribution. So I'm going to give it the attribution, but I'm going to put curly brackets around it because it's expecting it in the form of an object. So I could have just made this an object, but whatever, neither here nor there. This is, I have the attribution, I have the tile URL, and now I can create the leaflet tiles, and then all I have to do is say my map, or wait, what do I do? Add to, right. And then I just need to add those tiles to the map. So I can say tiles.add to my map. So let's see if this works, and I'll come back to these pieces in a second. Go back to my, oops. I'm going to go back to my web page, and there it is. And I can zoom all the way out, and you can see I am able to see all the tiles of any zoom level I want and move around the map. Okay, so I've got the map there. Great. So a couple things. One is, let me just change this to start with 0, 0. That's the initial latitude and longitude of the center of what you're loading. And this is the zoom level. This 13 is zoomed quite a ways in. I'm going to set this back to 1, which is basically no zoom. Go back to the page, and you can see, there we go. It's starting off. If I give myself a little bit more space, there we'll see the map here. Now I should note this is using this is Mercator projection, I assume. Let me do this with a green screen. Now I should note this, I assume it is. OpenStreetMap is Mercator projection. OpenStreetMap Mercator. A pseudo Mercator projection. Okay. Now I should note that OpenStreetMap uses a Mercator projection, or pseudo close to the original Mercator projection, which was Flemish. Now I should note that the Now I should note that the OpenStreetMap tiles use a Mercator projection. The Earth itself is a sphere, and so we're looking at it as a flat plane. So we have to figure out, well, how do we take that sphere and unwrap it onto a flat plane? And there are a variety of different techniques for doing this, many different kinds of projections. The Mercator projection, which is created in the Mercator projection, which was created in 1569 by the Flemish geographer and cartographer Gerardus Mercator, is commonly used, but it is a bit problematic. It has a kind of Western-centric view of the world. The Greenland appears massive, while Africa appears quite small, and has to do with the way that the Earth is being stretched along the poles as it's flattened out. So this is something that I think is important to be conscientious and thoughtful about as you're deciding how you're presenting data in the mapping context. But for this simple example, I'm going to stick with what OpenStreetMap gives us to work with. Okay, so hopefully that was a pretty decent explanation. The other piece of this to come back to is this tile URL. So this is a little bit of a strange URL. If I actually come and grab this URL and try to paste it into a new tab in the browser, it's not going to be able to do anything with that. It's giving me some nice Google searches. But this isn't an actual valid URL. This is giving leaflet.js the format for how it should create a URL for any given tile. Any given tile of any particular style, that's what the S is for, at any particular latitude and longitude. And what do the X, Y, and Z mean? Because the X, Y must be at any given X, Y, and Z. Let's see. The Z must be the zoom. Z is the zoom. Okay. This is not an actual URL that you can work with. This is just the formatting for how leaflet.js will create the URL for any given tile. So that bracket S, close bracket, that curly... This is not an actual valid URL that you could work with. It's just the format of any given URL for any given... This is not an actual URL that you could work with. This is just the format of a URL for any given tile. So if you want a particular tile at this XY location with this zoom level, with this particular style, the S for style, the X and Y for latitude and longitude presumably, and the Z for zoom, it will give you that tile. So, and you could start playing around with that and loading tile images yourself, but this is what leaflet.js does all of that for us. We just need to say like, hey, use this convention for loading your tiles from OpenStreetMap with this particular attribution. And now that we have the map and the latitude and longitude, I need to put something on the map at a particular latitude and longitude. This is what's known as a marker. So now we need to create a leaflet.js marker object. And to do that, I'm actually going to go just to show you the documentation of leaflet.js. I probably could have found this on the Getting Started page, but I'm going to go and find a marker. That's one of the UI layers. There's pop-ups and tooltips. I'm just going to go to marker, and this is giving me now information of how to create a marker. I need to create a marker at a given latitude and longitude, and then there are some options. So let's just do this. L.marker with latitude and longitude, add to map. Oh, this is perfect. So let's grab this. Let's go back to our code. I'm going to go here. Wait. No, I'm going to go here. I'm going to put this in here, and I am going to say the actual latitude and the actual longitude from the API itself, and I'm going to add that to my map. So here, this is bad. Maybe I don't. Actually, let's do this. I want to do this a different way. This will work. Actually, this will work. I'm going to put it through this way right now. I need to refactor this to do this in a nicer way, but let's just see if this works. And now I go back to my thing. Oh, there we go. That is actually right now where the International Space Station is over the Earth. And if I hit refresh, you can see it moved, ever so slightly. But this is problematic because I'm going to want to have I want to be able to update this location and do more with it. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to take this bit of code and I'm going to do this right at the beginning. And I'm going to create a variable called marker. Whoops. And I'm going to create a variable called marker. And I'm going to set it equal to a marker that gets and I'm going to set it equal to a marker. Sorry, let me just do that again because I coughed. And I'm going to create a variable. I'll call it marker. And I'm going to set it equal to the result of L.marker. And I don't have the latitude and longitude yet at 0, 0. So now you can see the marker just starts at 0, 0, 0. But when I get the data, I could do something like, say, marker set view. Is that what it is? I think I could probably give it an updated location. I could look on the documentation page. That would be nice. No, set view is not a function. I shouldn't trust what Visual Studio Code is giving me as like, oh, just put this in. Set view doesn't make any sense. Let's go back to the documentation page. And we can see here, there should be a function called setLatLong. That makes sense, setLatLong. So I'm going to grab that function, not setView, and there we go. Go back to here, and we can see there we go. The reason why I want to do that is I want to always set to the new latitude, longitude if and when I update the location of the International Space Station. All right, getting close. I want to do that in the last video. Where did I get the image for the, here we go. Let's do one more thing just to make this a little nicer looking. This is what's the license on this? Let's do one more thing to make it a little nicer looking. We can customize let me actually go over here. Let's do one more thing to make this a little nicer looking. We can actually customize what is used as the icon for the marker itself. I have here, this is a public domain image, a little SVG file of the International Space Station itself. I can download this as a PNG file or convert it to a PNG, which I'm going to do. I can grab this image right down here as a PNG file. It's 200 pixels. I'm going to save this. Whoops. And I can save this. Hold on. I can grab this image. I can grab this image as a PNG file, for example, at 200 pixels. I just need a very small one, which I can see here, and I can save this as part of my project. So let me just do that here. Working, fetch JSON, ISS200.png. So now we can see, oh, this is extra nonsense. That's fine. I don't care. Now you can see and here it is in the folder where I'm working. In addition to my index.html file, I also have that image file as a PNG. I'm going to click on it, and you can see that Visual Studio Code will even kind of render it for me here, and then I can create a leaflet icon object. Here I'm on the documentation page for the icon object. I can actually just, I could read through what all the options are, but I'm just going to grab this exact code right here. I'm going to pull this into my code. I'm going to copy paste it. And I don't need most of this stuff, but we can see what's the icon URL. Well, this is my file now, ISS 200. It's a 200 by maybe 120. It's a 200 by maybe it's a 200 by maybe 120 pixel image. I'm going to just say like 50 by 30 to shrink it. I want to put the, or maybe I. It's a 200 by approximately 120 pixel image. I want to make it like appear a bit smaller, so I can actually give it a specific size here. I happen to know that 50 by 32 is about right, but this is really important. I want the anchor to be in the center of it. So that's where I want to position the image itself, its center on the actual latitude and longitude. So this is 2516, and I don't need this shadowing and shadow stuff, so I'll just get rid of that. And now I have an icon. I can say ISS icon. And then I should be able to say, I should be able to add that to the marker. So if I'm creating the marker here, right, what's the next thing that I do? I can actually give it a second argument. In addition to the latitude and longitude, I can give it that particular icon. So I'm going to do this, comma, icon, and it's my ISS icon, and then we should see the International Space Station as an icon on our page. Oh, and there it is, it worked. Wow, I'm so surprised that worked. I was expecting an error. I thought I was going to have to do like an onload thing. Simon is asking me, why didn't you say something about the syntax? I thought about attribution. I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. I thought I did, but maybe I missed saying that. And there we are. Now I see, instead of the little pin, is it a pin? Is it a little, what do you call that thing? And there you are. Now instead of the default marker, I now have the image of the space station itself. It's, I can kind of zoom in here. You can see it's not changing its size based on where it is, but that's fine with me. And it's somewhere over Ohio right now. All right, let's review what's in this code. We're creating a map. We're creating an icon for a marker, and all right, let's review and take a little bit of time to reorganize our code a little bit, because I think the tile stuff would make sense here. So first, we are making a map and tiles. Then we are making a marker with an icon, custom icon. So we're doing all of this stuff here is just leaflet.js. When the page loads, we create the map, we add the tiles, we add the icon, we give it some default settings, and then, only then, at the end here, we then call getISS, which reaches out to the API, gets the data, and updates the marker's location on the map and the DOM elements for latitude and longitude. So this is now mostly a finished project. There's a lot more that you could do with it. It's an exercise. For example, maybe you want to try using different tiles with different styles. I'm a poet, I didn't even know it. maybe, oops. Maybe you want to design your own icon. Maybe you want to try playing around with different settings, like those shadow settings. Maybe even you want to think about how you're sizing that icon relative to the zoom level. Is that a thing that you could do? That would be pretty tricky, but you might want to try it. Maybe you want to represent some other stuff on the map. I also would say that while this is a really... I would also suggest that instead of using the default marker object in a mapping library, you could use something like P5JS, which I use in a lot of videos on my channel, to draw your own custom visualization on top of the map. And there's a particular library for P5 called Mappa.js that allows you to do a lot of creative stuff with drawing on top of a map. I will refer you in the video description to some other video tutorials I have about Mappa, and I will also include an example that goes along with this with drawing my own custom International Space Station thing on top of the map without using the leaflet marker. So try your own style, try varying how it looks, and what I'm going to do, I've got one more thing I want to do here, which is that in order for me to get a new location, I have got to refresh the page. And actually, you know what would be good? You should try this. I'm going to add this in the next video too. We might as well, and this is going to change the whole way the web page works actually, which might be a little tricky, but why not set the location of the space station to be the center of the map and a higher zoom level for it to load with the ISS right there in the center of the map. So that might be something to try as well. So I'm going to come back in the next, try some of that stuff, come back and you'll see solutions in the next video where I'll wrap up this project. I'm not switching to the green screen very much, but that's fine. It is what it is. I can always re-record stuff later. What time is it? Okay, I got to finish up. I really got to go in like 10, 15 minutes, but it's just very little left to do. Let me just check my messages here. 4:30. Okay, checking. Okay. Last bit, let me get the Slack channel back up. Ooh. Where's Slack? Here it is. Okay. All right. So far, we've looked at how to reach out and make a request using the fetch function to an external API with a particular URL path, grab the data in JSON format, pull out a piece of that data we want, and then use it for a particular reason. And in this case, the data that I'm getting is the latitude and longitude of the International Space Station, and I'm plotting it on a map using the leaflet.js library. So the one key feature, there's a couple different features here that I didn't implement, but one really key feature that I did not implement is having that latitude and longitude refresh automatically without me having to reload the page. Now, it is important that I remind myself that the rate limits of this API specify that I cannot make the request more than once per second. So I should limit my refresh rate of the application itself to at a minimum that. And this is something that really that you have to be conscientious about. In this case, it's just an example. It's just an experiment. I don't have to worry too much about it. But as you build applications that get used by more and more people, the rate at which you're requesting data from an API can become, a fundamental thing. It could at a certain point cost you a lot of money to make a certain amount of requests. So you have to be thoughtful about how often you're doing that. But even before that, I think what I would like to see happen is the map, when it first loads, to have the space station oriented in the center with a bit more zoom. So let's see if we can at least fix that. So I'm going to go back to the code. And here, once I get the data from the International Space Station, this is where I update the marker's location. So I should be able to also update the map's location. How do I do that? Should have looked this up. Right, when you create the map, set view. Oh, that's what set view is. Set view. And how do you do that? Well, it's the set view function. Now, you might remember from the last video, I tried to use set view with the marker. So when you are specifying the location of the marker, that's set lat long. When you are specifying the location of the map itself, that is set view. And I would give it a latitude and a longitude, and also then some zoom level. Let's just try like 5. I don't know what's going to be reasonable. And there we go. Apparently it's open, it's over open water right now, so we're not seeing anything super interesting. But let's set that back down to 2, and we can see there it is. It's right there in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean right now. Great. Now we're ready for the final step here. I want to get the new latitude and longitude every so often. And the way that I'm going to do that is with the set interval function. So there is a function in JavaScript called set interval. And what set interval does is it says, hey, take this function, maybe your function called getISS, and have it happen every so often, like every 1,000 milliseconds. So in this sense, I can just call getISS, which does all this, and then I want it to happen right when the page loads, because set interval will actually wait a second for the first time it calls it. So I'm going to leave this redundant one in here, getISS, and then every 1 second, do that again. Let's see what happens. Wow, that was like 1 line of code. It's a whole video for this 1 line of code. We'll see if we run into any issues here and have to do a bit more. Refresh. Up. GetISS is not defined. Oh, what's going on here? Wait, what did I do? Can it not use an async function in there? Oh. Oops. The S's are capitalized. JavaScript, as you might know, is case sensitive. Don't forget that. I always forget that. So we can see this number is changing every so often. Is this moving? Oh wait, it keeps fixing my zoom. So here's the thing. Even though I wanted to set the map's location here initially, its view initially to this, I only want to set the view the first time. So how do I want to deal with this? Well, there's a variety of ways I can do this, but I think one way I could do is just use a Boolean flag variable. So I can say something like first time is true, and I can say right here, if it's the first time, then set the view, and after you do that, set first time equal to false. So this would be whenever getISS is called, it's going to set that view to the latitude and longitude with that zoom, then set first time to false, so the next time it comes around, that will never happen again. Maybe not the most elegant solution, but one that will work. Is it moving? Can we see it's moving? Yeah, there it moved. I think we're going to have to get a bit more zoom in here to really see it moving. There we go. Now we can see the International Space Station every 1 second is moving along the map. Shoot, I didn't plan this very well because this was so short. Like that's going to be like 6 minutes. I guess I could just put this in with the previous video. You know what? I guess this should be in the previous video. It's nice to have the exercise, though.
do something else?
What could I add to this to make this a little more interesting? I mean, well, let me do this. I'm just curious. It's kind of interesting. The map is moving instead. It's not that interesting. Why did I need the onload in the previous one? Like I used the add event listener load. Like what? Like it's weird that the, oh, it's because I put the, no. Script is still below the div. Oh, to fixed. That's a nice thing to do. That's a little like cleanup thing I could do. Get the TLE, calculate the orbit, and plot it on the map. I think I just have to be done with this, and I can reorder it later. There's some small cleanup things we could do that might be nice for me to show you here just to kind of polish this project off a little bit more. One is my web page is showing me quite a bit of decimal places for the latitude and longitude. That seems a little bit unnecessary. I can use the JavaScript function toFixed, which will fix what it is adding to only two decimal places. So that's a nice little cleanup piece here. I could also add the degree. Right? I might as well add the degree character here to see that. Right? That would be in degrees, right? So where would I put that? How do you type the degree character again? Does it go before or after? Latitude, longitude. Whoops. I want that degree character. Okay, there it is. So I could just put the little degree character right in here in the HTML itself. Whoops. So I could put the degree character. So I could add right after the span, I could put the degree character right here, and I go back to the page, And whoops, how come I didn't hit save? No, where is it? Oh, I put it in the span. That's very important. It'll get replaced if it's in the span. It has to be outside. And there we go. So I have the degrees there. That's kind of nice. Oh, create a UI where we can toggle following the marker. All right. So I have a better idea. I think I better wrap this up, and I'll use this. So there are so many more things we could add to this, and a nice reference might be to go back and look at the there are so many things we could add to this, and a nice reference might be to go back and look at the where the ISS.at website and see. For example, what if I also grabbed the altitude and then I made the size of the icon somehow tied to the altitude? What if I added some more UI elements so I could toggle things on and off? Maybe actually I could keep the view always centered around the ISS and have the map move behind it, whereas the ISS would stay in place instead of it moving along the map. Again, I could use the P5 library to do my own custom drawing, perhaps even of the path, or draw a velocity vector of how the map is moving. And I will include in this video's description, when you go over to the GitHub repository for the code in this example, I'll also include the code for a variety of these solutions and variations that you're seeing right now. So thanks for watching this project. We have done a lot in this first module of working with data and APIs in JavaScript. We've learned about the fetch function. We know how to get different kinds of data with the fetch function, image, text, JSON data. We know how to get JSON data from an external API. We've looked at using some other JavaScript libraries like chart.js and leaflet.js for charting and mapping, but we're missing a big, huge piece. What if I want to save some data and use it later? What if I want to authenticate with an API but hide my API keys? There are so many kinds of things that I need in addition to this JavaScript code, this HTML code that I have here, that I also need a server. Sorry. There are so many things that I might want to do that need more than just an index.html file with some JavaScript in it, some HTML in it, maybe some CSS in it. A lot of things that I'm going to want to do, that I'm going to show you how to do, involve writing your own server. And in this case, I'm going to show you how to use something called Node.js, a JavaScript, I always say framework and people get mad at me. I'm going to show you how to use Node.js, a JavaScript runtime, another way of writing JavaScript outside of the context of the browser to write server-side applications and do a variety of kinds of things, working with data, manipulating data, saving data, communicating with APIs that you couldn't do so easily with just JavaScript in the browser. The two projects that I'm going to build are, hold on. And the two projects that I'm going to build are both by Joey K. Lee. Thank you so much, Joey, for helping me prepare a lot of materials for this particular playlist of videos, series. And the two projects that I'm going to show you are and the two projects that I'm going to build in the next set of videos, they're projects by Joey K. Lee. Thank you so much for Joey for preparing these materials and allowing me to use them in this video series. The first one is going to demonstrate the basics of server-side programming with Node and show you how to save data to a simple local database. And the first one is going to capture images from your webcam and save them to a database. So you're going to learn about how to save data to a database and also how to do something more with the fetch function, which is post data to the server. Right now we've been using fetch just to retrieve data. We can also send data with a post request. And the third project is going to use an API called what's the API? OpenAQ. Let me look at the code here. What's the weather API that I'm using? Express Morgan. Weather.js, okay. In the third project, I'm going to look at how to use two different APIs at the same time. I'm going to use this Weather.js node package to get weather information as I'm going to use. And the third project, I'm going to show you how to use two different APIs at the same time. One, I'm going to use Weather.js, which is a node package for getting weather information, along with OpenAQ, which is an API for retrieving air quality information. And so we're going to. And what's different about that project is it will require private API keys that get stored on the server and that are hidden from the user, the end user who's viewing the information on the web page, and hidden from the end user on the web page. In the third project, which is called The Weather Here by Joey Lee, I don't know if I need all this, but I'm going to just record it now anyway. And the last project is called The Weather Here, also by Joey K. Lee. In this project, I'm going to show you how to use two different APIs at the same time. I'm going to use a weather API and an air quality API to plot the. Yeah, I don't know why I'm describing so much. In the third project, which is also by Joey K. Lee, in the third project called The Weather Here, also by Joey Lee, I'm going to show you how to. And the third project, also by Joey Lee, in this project is crazy. I'm going to use two different APIs at the same time. One for getting weather information, one for getting air quality information. And what's going to be different and interesting about that project is it's going to require authentication and hiding private API keys on the server itself. So we're going to look at how to do that so that you can publish and open source your code, but also keep your API keys hidden. So thanks for watching. You've now completed the first module in working with data and APIs, and we're on to module 2 in the next video. All right. Good enough for government work, as they say. I have got to get a move on here. It is 5:40. This will be enough for today. Thank you all. I'm going to be back. Do not have time to try. I really need some time to try this in advance. But on Wednesday morning, I'll be back to continue the Rubik's Cube stuff. And then I am also planning to maybe, Simon had a great suggestion, which is 144 in base 12 is 100. So to celebrate the 100th coding challenge in base 12, I don't know, I'm going to do something with base 12. Because also I have this brilliant sponsorship and they have a whole lesson on number bases. So something really simple, hopefully with an interesting visual. I have to come up with it and think about it. All right, but if you have ideas for that, please let me know in Slack, because I barely have any time to look into this before Wednesday morning. So, and I've got to also figure out how I'm going to get the Rubik's Cube to shuffle. So much to do. Thank you for tuning in for this member-only stream. Let me double check. Before I'll give it a couple minutes to see if anyone has any important questions. And I am looking in, it's my email, that's not important. Nothing in the YouTube chat. Let me hit stop here. And I should really do something about the fact that you don't see this. I should really do something, it's too bad. Maybe in post we can fix this, but I should be more I always open new tabs and I just have the default Google Chrome showing me recent websites, which is kind of fine right now, but maybe I should be more careful about what's being seen there. So let me, what am I doing here? Screen capture. What's today's date? April 1st, January, February, March, April, 4/1/2019. Save that. And then I'm going to stop recording to disk. I'm going to upload the files from today. Mm. These are the files from today. There's a bunch of extra ones, but I guess I'll upload them all anyway. 1, 2. Oh, shoot. I need to do a quick recording for my class. All right. Oh, whoops. Somehow I'm like pressing buttons. And it's putting the sponsor stuff on. Okay, nothing else in the chat. Please keep this conversation going in the live channel, and I will see you on Wednesday morning for the public live stream shenanigans with the Rubik's Cube. Okay, goodbye, everybody. Oh, that's not how I say goodbye. So click this here. End stream. Okay, goodbye.